We use depend and depending when one thing is strongly affected by another thing. For example, if there is a lot of rain, the flowers in your garden will grow. If there is no rain, the flowers will not grow. This means the growth of the flowers depends on the rain. One thing, the flower's growth, is affected by another thing, the rain. However, a lot of students are confused about when to use depend versus depending. The answer involves the grammar of each sentence. Use depend or depends when it is the main verb in the sentence. For example, will you go to the beach this weekend? I'm not sure. It depends on the weather. The subject is it, and the main verb is depends. Here's another example. The results of the survey depend on the types of questions asked. The subject is the results of the survey, and the main verb is depend. So, when depend is the main verb, it is considered a state verb, not an action verb, and is never used in continuous form. Never say it's depending on. Always say it depends on. We use depending when the word begins a dependent clause. This means that the sentence already has a separate subject and main verb, and the dependent clause only adds some extra information. For example, we're thinking about going to the beach depending on the weather. The subject is we, and the main verb is are thinking. The word depending begins a dependent clause. It is not the main verb. You can also have dependent clauses at the beginning of a sentence. For example, depending on the types of questions asked, the survey produces different results. In this sentence, the subject is the survey, and the main verb is produces. So, as you can see, we only use depending when it is not the main verb. One important note is that we always say depend or depending on, never of or in. There's another way to use depend or depending, meaning when one person is relying on another, they trust the other person and or need the other person to do something. With this definition, we can use depend for relying on someone in general and depending for relying on someone right now in a specific situation. For example, I don't have a car, so I depend on my colleagues to give me rides to work every day. I depend on my colleagues in general. I'm depending on you to get this project done by Friday.